So this is Whack-A-Mole number 150, the Pacific Northwest edition. I randomly pull 5 records from my collection, showcase them to you, my friends, and we'll just have a little one-sided conversation from me to you. But put your comments below about these records you see. If you have questions or if you want to tell me what you think about them. Anyway, here we go. 5 random. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a no-brainer, 1968 Cheap Thrills with the fabulous cover by R. Crumb, the creator of those great, interesting comics of the 1960s. R. Crumb, well, he got $500 to create this cover for Cheap Thrills. Big Brother and the Holding Company, their debut for Columbia. Clive Davis, president of Columbia, saw Janis Joplin at Monterey. Their first album was on Mainstream Records. That album would later transfer to Columbia. What a great record. It has the feeling of a live record, but it's not a live record. You hear the bottles sometimes, and a very bluesy number of the covers of Summertime is on here. Combination of the two opens it up. But this is really a great sounding record, produced by John Simon, engineered by Elliot Mazer, who became a producer in his own right, producing Neil Young's Harvest. Let's see, what else can I say about this? Has the great introduction, clipped from a show, I think a Winterland show or a Fillmore show, probably Fillmore show, of Bill Graham introducing Big Brother and the Holding Company. But it's not a live record. And John Simon, the producer, said that, the band wasn't that great. He really had to work hard to get this to sound like it was. However, I am one who think that Big Brother, the band, is so much better, well suited for Janis. Yeah, they're a little sloppy, they're a little psychedelic at times, they're a little funky, but it just really is wonderful. Later, when she did the Full Tilt Boogie Band, I thought it was a little too slick. It was sort of the beginning of the end, in my opinion. Love this record. Of course, the psychedelic show, probably from a Winterland or a Fillmore show with the psychedelic, but there was all these, what I liked about those early posters at the Fillmore and Avalon, you'd have also, there'd be credits for the light show, like Jerry Abrams' light show, Lights by Headlights. Wonderful, wonderful record. Very bluesy psychedelic, of course, with the wonderful Janis Joplin. 1968. This is a slight, it's weird how promo, they didn't really have stamp promos in those days, and it says demonstration. There was a reissue, Record Store Day, or just I can't remember who put it out. Was it Sundays maybe? A mono copy, which is really rare, because 1968 was that time when mono wasn't really a thing. God, this Whack-A-Mole's picked some classics. I have gone through several copies of this. This is my original. This is one of those records. Of course, Yes, Fragile is an amazing sounding record. Obviously, that's why there are several high-end audiophile pressings of it, because people really love the sound of this. I don't have any of those audiophile pressings because it's just about this great record. I understand it. I have heard, now I can't remember, it was a MoFi UHQR. I've heard one of them, and it does sound really good, but I'm satisfied with this copy. Great prog record, of course, John Anderson, Bill Bruford, who is on every other prog record ever made, and Steve Howe, Rick Wakeman, of course. Roundabout, I don't know, this just, Fragile is just a great sounding, I think it's one of the best prog records ever made, because it's accessible, it doesn't go on too long, it doesn't wear out its welcome, which I think some prog records do. It's got the amazing cover art by Roger Dean. Was this 1972? Yeah, 1972. So this is a 50th-year-old record. So I don't need to say any more because you know about it. If you don't have any prog, this is a nice entry point, in my opinion. Same with the first Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Bob Weir, of course, from the Grateful Dead. I think he just turned 75. Didn't he have a birthday? Am I misremembering that? He's touring with Don Was in sort of an offshoot project of the Grateful Dead and the Dead and Company and all that. This is his last solo album, as I recall, called Blue Mountain. It's really, really well recorded. In fact, this came out around the same time as the Chris Hillman solo record produced by Tom Petty, and came out, I think, just when Tom Petty died, or right either before or right after he died. But this is a folk record. His voice hasn't sounded better in so long, in my opinion. He never had a strong voice, but he had an interesting voice. It's got great acoustic, very Pacific Northwest in a way, but obviously very Marin County, Northern California, singer-songwriter, has a country flavor to it. This came out in 2016, so it's already 8 years old. Time flies. But I really, really love this record. It's a beautifully recorded record. I highly recommend it. When they first had offshoot projects, was it 71 or 72 of the Grateful Dead? My two favorites, obviously, the first Garcia record and Ace, the Bob Weir album Ace, and of course the Dead did a lot of those songs for many, many years. Get a chance, there's a documentary, I believe it's either on Netflix or Amazon, it's on one of the streaming services, a documentary on Bob Weir, and it's well worth watching if you have any interest in the Dead and the music scene in Northern California, in San Francisco Bay Area, in the 60s into the 70s. Highly recommended. Bob Weir. Ooh, this is a gem. This is an original Folkways 1964 of Woody Guthrie. Look at that picture. It looks like a painting. I mean, of course, that's during the Dust Bowl. This is Dust Bowl Ballads sung by Woody Guthrie, Folkways Records number 5212. Talking Dust Bowl Blues, Blown Down This Road, Do Re Mi, of course, Do Re Mi, Tom Joad, The Great Death Storm, Vigilante Man. I don't think I first heard Vigilante Man until Ry Cooder covered it on his first or second album, I believe. But what a time! What a historian. Of course, if you get a chance, I have not been there, but the Woody Guthrie Archive in Tulsa, Oklahoma is well worth visiting. It's right adjacent to the Bob Dylan Archive and the Dylan Museum there right now. But I think this is one of the most amazing pictures, and this is true archival material. Again, original 60s pressing. I don't know when this was recorded. The cover photograph by Arthur Rothstein, Dust Storm, Cimarron County, Oklahoma, 1936. I fell in love when I saw this record. I've known about this record. I think you can find different variations of it. It's been reissued over the years, but I just love this. 1964 Folkways Records. The great Woody Guthrie, of course. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have Bob Dylan, probably, at least not in the same incarnation that he came out and was inspired by this man. Great record. And lastly, Kinks Preservation Act, Volume 1. 2 RCA records. The second one was a double album. I really like this record. There's a segment of Kinks fans that don't like the RCA theatrical years. Ray Davis went all in on theatrics and thematic things through those years, and very, the theater district type of West End, Broadway, off-Broadway type of musical theater. Not your straight rock and roll, although every record has some rock and roll gems and great ballads. The opening has the chorus Morning Song, which is one of my favorite openings of an album, really. You wouldn't know it's the Kinks, and it's very like a beginning of an animated classic Disney movie from the 1940s or 50s with birds and singing and animals and squirrels coming out of the woodwork. And that's the feeling I get from that song. I think I've used it on a couple of videos over the last several years here. I love that song. And Sweet Genevieve is a very catchy song. Where Are They Now is Where Are They Now is a beautiful song. They talk about sort of the British infamous people like Christine Keeler, who was part of the Brofomo incident that brought down, was it Wilson, Prime Minister Wilson, that period of time, with the Russian spy who was sleeping with the hooker who was sleeping with a member of parliament. Very famous story. If you get a chance to see the movie Scandal, it's well worth watching. But he talks about these great British characters. Mary Quant, obviously the fashion. The fashion or the scent, perfumes and things. The whole Carnaby Street swing in '60s. Where Are They Now? Fantastic, fantastic song. One of the Survivors is a good rocker too. So this is a good album. I like the RCA period. Some people, obviously, there's, Kinks have several phases. Obviously, their first rock and roll phase, and then the classic, the best, with Village Green, then Arthur, and then into Lola on Warner Brothers Reprise, and of course then they go to RCA Records with Celluloid Heroes, that period, and on until the records start stalling out, and Clive Davis again, I'm bringing him up again, who started earlier, a couple years earlier, Arista Records, brings the Kinks on and says, look, you got to tighten your act up and do some more accessible rock and roll. Of course, they do Misfits and Sleepwalker first. Two great albums, but then they became sort of this arena band for a while. Well, I love the Kinks, everything about the Kinks. You can't argue with a fisheye lens photograph on it. So thanks for watching this Pacific Northwest edition of Whack-A-Mole number 150. Mazzy loves you, and I do appreciate everything. Click and subscribe, please. I would be very thankful. Mazzy loves you. Almost forgot.